Hi everyone, welcome back to Trees and Turtles. In today's video we're going to be exploring why your early 20s is a transitional phase and why you shouldn't be ashamed of that, like why it's a good thing. So if you haven't followed me, I'm Imogen, make sure to subscribe. I post videos about productivity and finding myself and vlogs and temporary tattoos like the ones I've got on my arm all the time. So we have a good time here. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, that's in the description. Anyway, we will get into the video. So, the first thing I want to talk about is that your early 20s are really a sort of transition to adulthood. Obviously you become an adult when you're 18, and that's like normal. But I feel like when you turn 20 it feels different, like you're no longer a teenager and sometimes you're like, shit, this just got real. For me, I went to university and that was my first time living away from home, and I just felt like a lot of things landed on my head at once, and things are still landing on my head at a considerable rate. So it's kind of the transition between adolescence and adulthood. So you start taking on more responsibilities like financial independence, what you're going to do for your career, and where you're going to live, like I moved out. And obviously that sort of promotes your personal growth. So I think you should give yourself some grace during this time because a lot of things are happening at once and it's normal to feel a little bit confused. Okay, point two, higher education or going into a career. So a lot of people, including myself, go to university. This can mean moving away from home, or they get a job. This can also mean moving away from home. So obviously there's a lot of academic pressure on you or professional pressure to start out and make a good impression on whether it be your lecturers or your boss. So I think you can feel a lot of like stress from that angle, like you're trying to impress people as an adult for the first time, and just do your best, whether that be in an academic setting or a professional setting, or, in some cases, including me, both. So that kind of like, obviously you level up in a lot of knowledge and skills, but again, a stressful time. Another reason why it's a period of change is that you're really sort of forming your identity. Obviously, during your teenage years, a lot of things are changing and you feel like you're changing as well, and I certainly changed a lot during my teenage years. Like 6 months ago I'm a completely different person from how I am now, and the change was even faster when I was like 14, 15, 16. So I'd look back on myself 3 months previously and be like, I don't like that. But at the same time I think it's important to be grateful for that constant change and growth, because it's really a sort of busy process of forming the adult that you ultimately want to be, and there's a lot of experimentation, exploration that goes along with that, and I think that's a fantastic thing. I mean, as you get older and things settle down, then it might not be as tumultuous, but, you know, it might not be as exciting, and I think that's something to revel in while you have it. Relationships and socializing. So friendships, romantic relationships, all of these are forming at a steady pace, maybe a not so steady pace, during your early 20s and late teens, and that can also be very confusing. So I have a lot of like good stories from the friendship and dating world, and I can do a video on that if you're interested, so comment below, but I have a lot of stories from that, and I think it was just me getting used to what it's like to just not exactly be around other people, but just growing into my adult friendships and adult relationships and kind of navigating the world of adult friendships and dating, which is quite different to how it is when you're a teenager, because, well, friendships in particular, like, you move away to university and you don't see your school friends every day and you're sort of left wondering, you know, how do I maintain these friendships and which people are important to me? And those questions are, I think, a lot of what is part of the turmoil of your early 20s, is because you're not sure what to do, people are moving away, you want to stay close to them, but at the same time you're growing your personality, so again, that can be a really confusing time. Alright, this next topic is kind of a pet project of mine, and that's financial independence. So, you're an adult, now you have bills to pay, you probably have tax to pay, you definitely have rent to pay. Yeah, I had to learn to budget. This year is the year that I said, look, I need to get my finances in order, I need to fix up my credit score, I need to get some savings goals, I need to start investing, and all of those are things that I've done this year, and they've all improved, so I'm really happy about that, but it just took me to take the initiative and start budgeting and start thinking about my long-term goals, like 5 years, 10 years, where do you want to be, what do you want to spend, what do you want to do, and financial independence ties into all of that, because, you know, you have money, you can get nice things. Like, it's really nice to sort of, you know, I have a job and then I get paid, and I put some stuff into savings, I go out and I buy myself a bubble tea and I earned that money, and it feels really good. And yeah, if you haven't had a job, you won't know that feeling, but get one and experience that feeling. I think everyone should, because it's just, the feeling of financial independence is definitely a top 5 feeling for me ever. And again, it's going to help with your personal growth, because you're really taking responsibility for your future for the first time. Or if you haven't done that when if you did that when you were a teenager, I applaud you. Well done. But I think a lot of us are exploring that in our early 20s and sort of taking that responsibility on for the first time. Another thing is that you're honing your ability to judge risk and make decisions. So obviously you don't want to make really bad big decisions, but I think it's a good time to fail. So if you want to try something out, try it. Like, you might fuck it up, but that's okay, because it's a period of transition and change. You know, if you want to have kids later on, it's much better to experiment with your lifestyle now than when you have big responsibilities like a house or kids. I don't personally want to have kids, but later on I want to own a house. So now is a good time when I don't own a house to try things out that, you know, I don't have as many responsibilities and I can just kind of wipe the slate clean and start again if something doesn't work. So take a few risks in your early 20s. I think you might enjoy it. Alright, mental health. This is also a big one for me, and I think I might do a series on mental health, actually. If you want that, in the description, please. Not in the description, in the comments, please. So a lot of people experience mental health issues, and it is in your early 20s, late teens, it is a really common time for those issues to emerge. So personally, I've experienced anxiety and depression, and been hospitalised for anxiety. So it was just a really sort of sobering thing. Like, I had to go on meds, and you know, even though I had really good friends, it's just, mental health issues are scary, guys, and there's no shame in that. And I think that we should be as open about it as possible, and that's why I like to talk about it on my channel, is because, you know, I think there's still some stigma around this, and that absolutely should not be. So reach out for as much help as you can get, because like mental health services and helplines and, you know, your friends and your tutors and stuff, they are there for you, and it is their job to look after you. So please accept some help. Okay, moving around, geographic mobility. I moved from the south to the north when I went to Durham, and basically moved up the entire country. So that was a very big change for me, and it was like 4 hours away from home, so I couldn't just easily go home on the weekend, and I just felt like I was completely starting a new life, if that makes sense. It was just like, the culture was different, and my sort of surroundings were different, the weather was different, and I was just sort of thrown off a little bit. I was like, well, this is new, and I'm not really sure how to deal with it. But I think it was good for me. It was almost being thrown in the deep end, but not quite, because I had college support. But yeah, it was like being thrown in the deep end, and I'm like, well, this is new. And I think also if you move for your career, that's going to be different, because you're going to be getting to a new place, and, you know, new colleagues, a new house probably, and that is all like a massive, massive thing, especially when you're just like starting out, and you're thinking back to a couple of years ago, like, I was a teenager a couple of years ago, what's going on? I'm not an adult, someone should supervise me, you know? And I think that sort of feeling of moving around, like, I've often felt like I don't really belong in one place or another, because every few months I pack up and I go somewhere. You know, like, I pack up and I go home, or I pack up and I go back to uni, and I feel like I spent half of my life on a train, and I did struggle with that to begin with, because I feel like I never really settle in any one place. But I think that's quite normal for your early 20s, and a lot of people I know are going through the same thing. So if you're going through the same thing, there are plenty of us. Another thing I wanted to talk about is independence and sort of self-reliance. So a lot of the things I've mentioned require you to be very independent, very resourceful, very, not self-confident, but also self-confident. You know, to solve your own problems, to see something and be like, wow, well, either I need to find someone to help me, or I need to figure this out on my own, because help is not going to be handed to you, if that makes sense. So I feel like I've learned to be a lot more confident and a lot more, not demanding necessarily, but I think assertive in terms of what my needs are, and I've been more efficient at getting things done for myself, you know, like cooking, cleaning. It's not like I didn't do that when I lived at home, but to be honest, like, especially feeding myself, I've done a lot of work on that. I'm like, do I want to meal prep now, or what ingredients do I use? And just trying to stay healthy in general. If you want a video on that, I have done one, so I'll try and find some way to link it. But yeah, that sort of aspect of self-reliance has been really important, and it can feel very, yeah, not traumatic exactly, but like very tumultuous, I think is what I'm getting at. But ultimately it is very rewarding, because then you gain confidence and you rely on yourself and you're like, oh, actually, I can do that. So I think that's quite rewarding. Okay, the final thing I want to talk to you about in this exploration of why your 20s are a transitional phase is that you're really exploring your passions. So I talked a little bit earlier about like lifestyle exploration and stuff, like where you want to live, what you want to do, whether you want to draw stuff on your body. But I think your exploration of your passions it goes a bit deeper. So obviously you might be starting a career, you might be studying at university, and a lot of people figure out that, oh, this is not for me, or I want to go in a completely different direction, or I don't want to have a career, I want to do a PhD, or I don't want to do a PhD, I want to have a career. Obviously a PhD is a career, but I meant like a career outside of academia. So I think a lot of people are changing their minds, and it's okay to not have it all figured out. Like, for me, for example, I was planning on going to a master's straight away from my undergrad, but in these last 3 years I've been quite burned out with my degree, and I've decided that to give my master's, like, everything I've got, I need to take a couple years out and I need to work for a couple of years. And I was talking to one of my lecturers, and she said that she did exactly the same before she did her PhD. Like, she worked for a couple of years, she went back to academia, so it's a well-worn path, and I think whatever you decide to do, and whatever you look like after you come out of this period of transformation and sort of head off into your like late 20s, early 30s in a sort of more stable, plateaued kind of life, or maybe you decide not to have a stable, plateaued kind of life. So whatever you look like at the age of 30 is probably going to be quite different from what you look like now, and honestly, that's completely fine. And if you're feeling lost or confused or left out or wondering whether you're making the right decisions, can I just assure you that that's all completely normal, and a lot of people are feeling it too. And equally, if you feel like you're doing a great job, if you feel like you're an adult, you're independent and you're having a great time, that's completely valid as well, and go you. Because I feel both of those things at different times, and it's just about knowing that you make the right decisions for yourself and it will always work out okay. So that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. And if you didn't, subscribe anyway and you can hate watch. So follow me on Instagram. I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!